Call of the Dead, literally and metaphorically, is the shining light of Black Ops 1 zombies. Everything I could possibly love about Black Ops 1 and zombies in general is featured and highlighted in this map. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it that I'm putting Call of the Dead in one of the higher tier ratings of my list. It's for this reason that I will have to try to heavily critique this map, so if you find something very nitpicky, it's because I don't have a lot of negatives to say about this map. Spoiler alert, I just finished the script and I couldn't find anything, dang it. Also, as of the day I'm recording this audio, Call of the Dead released exactly 10 years ago. Wow. One of the main reasons I love Call of the Dead so much is that it is one of the few zombies maps that truly emphasizes the core zombies experience. So many maps nowadays just feel like the same thing with a new coat of paint, but Call of the Dead provides a unique experience. Right from the get-go, instead of a typical spawn room, you are placed in a frozen, foggy wasteland. Instead of zombies, you see George Romero, who we'll talk about later. The zombies do, however, spawn in, but this signals to you that this is going to be a completely different map. Call of the Dead is all about choices. Your choices affect the outcome of the game. I mentioned in my Derice video that I describe the map as fairly balanced. Let's reword it to balanced fairly, since I'm not sleep deprived typing this script. Call of the Dead is all about risks and rewards, and it requires your skill to make any outcome possible. A lot of map setups are somewhat autopilot for the first few rounds, but not Call of the Dead. Here you need to make a choice right from the get-go. Go left or right. Both sides have their advantages and disadvantages. If you go left, that's typically where the better wall buy selection is and the better training areas. If you go right, that's an immediate path to the power room and Juggernog, which is another thing I love. It makes sense that it's the best perk and it's also in the hardest spot to get. The player choice and freedom element is one of my favorite things about this map, and it shines immaculate. Ironically, even though the map is covered in thick fog, Call of the Dead doesn't hide anything unnecessarily. The lighthouse shows where Pack-a-Punch is every time. George Romero doesn't sneak up on you, he's very loud and has lots of bright lights associated with him. Even the Easter egg shows you somewhat what it's looking for. In a modern zombies map, these elements would all be weirdly shrouded in mystery. Like in Blood of the Dead, Pack-a-Punch can just vanish without a trace, and there's nowhere to really begin to look on where it went. Just guess, idiot. The astronaut in Moon can easily sneak up on you if you aren't listening closely, and if it's too late, you may be punished severely. Call of the Dead actually telegraphs what's happening and doesn't pull any smoke and mirrors. Even through the fog, you can see these key elements. A unique thing that I enjoy about Call of the Dead, while most people don't find this really ideal, I think it's fitting. On solo at least, you can technically beat Call of the Dead. There is an end goal. You can reasonably complete everything in the map. I don't know the exact specifics, but just keep this in mind. As far as I know, the highest solo Call of the Dead round is 91. That has gotta be one of the lowest high rounds ever. I believe only beaten by BO2 survival maps. Intentional or not, I think this is a great decision. There are no traps to keep you endlessly going. The Wonder Weapon does not kill forever. And 91 in the grand scheme of things is a pretty obtainable goal. However, I'll caveat this in a second. Compared to most other maps, where it can go to either in the thousands or the cap at 255, either of which last in the units of days rather than hours, I would cap off at when the scavenger stops killing. Getting to the rounds where the scavenger stops killing isn't that long, but getting much beyond that is kinda ridiculous. To give you a timescale, getting to round 50 only took about 2 hours, which I would say this is beating Call of the Dead. Round 70 takes 11 hours, and 91 took somewhere north of 70 hours. You can see what I mean by you can beat this map. Now, one of the best aspects of Call of the Dead is the celebrity casting crew, something that didn't need to be added, but was anyway. And it's not like this was a supplement for the Ultimus crew. No. They're here too, just behind a door. The map features Robert Englund, Danny Trejo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Michael Rooker, who all, by the way, do their own voice lines. All of these actors come together from various spooky horror movies and are directed by none other than George Romero. He's dubbed as the grandfather of zombies, and he's a major reason why zombies are mainstream in the first place. Very fitting that he is featured in one of the best zombies maps of all time. Now let's talk about George as a gameplay mechanic. Now, what I might say may trigger some people for some reason, but in my opinion, George Romero is the best zombie boss, period. The risk versus reward ratio is perfect. Let's think about it. Every single one of his features has some sort of counterplay or telegraph. Most notably, his rage. George's movement speed is incredibly slow, but he only rages if you shoot him, so making him mad is entirely on the player, not the game. If George gets triggered, he will start running, but luckily most of the map is fairly close to cold water, which makes him calm again. He also has an insane amount of health, which can be monitored by his light pole. However, killing him rewards you greatly. You get a random perk and a death machine, or if you complete the Easter egg at least once on your account, the Wonder Waff. This makes Call of the Dead the first map where you can, realistically, get all of the perks in the game. Killing George makes him go away for a little bit, but eventually he does return. I love this design choice because it constantly keeps something in the back of your mind. So many maps can just be ran on autopilot, but not Call of the Dead. There's always that looming threat of George, who's ever so near, and when you kill him, there's that calming silence and that sense of relief that it brings. You know, the next round you don't have to worry about anything. It's like the weekend after a long week at work. Unlike a lot of other maps, your time isn't wasted. If I was to make one change, I would make it so George could drop a max ammo if you had all 8 perks. I enjoy George Romero because he is an ever-looming threat that keeps the player on their toes, constantly, and it makes the match much more enjoyable for much longer. There doesn't need to be more content, just enjoyable content, and George Romero delivers. Speaking of content, Call of the Dead has the first Zombies Easter egg to give an achievement, and hey, this can be done solo. Just my style. The Easter egg is very simple and standard, and what I love most about it is that it teaches you lessons so you aren't just stuck in the dark. I do have to draw a line between this and spelled out for you in Cold War. For example, in Call of the Dead, you are told to blow up 4 red lights around the map. The game doesn't outright tell you where they are. Instead, in the bunker room, one of the red lights is there, so you know what to look for, but you still gotta look for it. Many more examples of this are spread throughout the Easter egg. Even just discovering the characters behind the door is funny on its own right. Just thinking about these 4 badass characters that we've been playing for as a while are stuck behind a door now? While the Easter egg is short, it is entertaining, and you don't really need to think about it that much. Again, for this early in the game, the Easter egg is pretty good. I will caveat that I have never done the co-op Easter egg, so I can't comment on that, but the fact that it permanently changes the death machine power-up to the Wonder Waff when you kill George, now that's an Easter egg reward. To add on top of the uniqueness cake, ever since the very first map of Nocturne and Toten, there have been hidden songs that you can play throughout the map. Each map has its own unique song made by the Lord himself, Kevin Sherwood. However, players would discover the 3 meteors around the map and hear something else. Something amazing. Avenged Sevenfold has grown to be one of my favorite bands, and while Origins is the one that introduced me to it, I'm surprised that this song isn't an actual album like Shepherd of Fire was. It's that badass. I'm Not Ready to Die is amazing, and it just adds that cherry on top. Call of the Dead is technically the first map to feature 4 wonder weapons. The main one, however, is the Scavenger. I love this thing. I mean, just the sound of it makes it like sex. I love this weapon because it's unique. Most other wonder weapons are some wacky laser 115 infused death cannon.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But Call of the Dead makes it simple, with an explosive sniper. Why not? Plus, it does have a skill curve. You can use PhD to mitigate the explosive damage, but it's a pretty large radius and can easily trigger George. But it also can quickly kill George when you pack-a-punch it. Another personal favorite of mine is the VR11. Now, I know that the VR11 is a poo-poo gun, but it's also the first and really only support Wonder Weapon, and that's why I appreciate it. That doesn't mean it's good, I just appreciate it. The VR11 has a lot of special traits that make it not total garbage. The regular shot makes it so that the zombie you hit turns into a CIA agent looking guy. Just the pure silliness alone makes me love it. But when you pack-a-punch it, it gains a few more abilities. If you shoot George while he's mad, he will calm down. But if you shoot George while he's in the water, he'll go away for a little bit. If you shoot another player with the VR11 upgraded, that player will gain an insta-kill effect and a precursor to the zombie blood. It also makes a zombie explode if you shoot the same one 3 times, so see, it can kill. I get it though, these abilities aren't really explained well in-game, so most players deem this gun trash right out of the box. The other Wonder Weapons are the Ray Gun and technically the Wonder Waff. This gives the map a great variety of choices. Even if you prefer one of those, you can still mix it up and technically hold all 4 Wonder Weapons at the same time if you have Mule Kick. So after all that praising and after all that love and attention, is Call of the Dead really an S tier map? Yes! I totally understand why people put this map in their top 5, I really do. And I can also kind of understand why people don't like this map, but for me, it comes down to personal preference. Call of the Dead absolutely was the best map of all time for quite a while, but unfortunately, with time comes evolution and improvement. One thing can't be number one forever, and with time, more maps will come along. To me personally, I prefer the more modern style of zombie maps. Mob of the Dead, Origins, Dryzendraw, Garage Krovi, these are the top 5 zombie maps because they are just cemented in legend. But Call of the Dead isn't a modern zombies map, it's a Black Ops 1 map, and that description alone should point it to it being more towards a B tier map at most. But the map design and flow and gameplay mechanics and design are so well crafted. In terms of general gameplay alone, this is my favorite map. But to me personally, I prefer maps that have a bit more adventure sandbox to them. But again, I'm not knocking this map, and it's great, but it doesn't stretch to the monumental lengths that the legendary top 5 go to. I'm giving this masterpiece a 9.5 out of 10. Double S tier.